ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our inspiration space. We are very delighted all today to have Meryem Kokaina. She's from Morocco, but she's now based in France. And she's a woman working toward the building of narratives in Africa. And the reshaping the narrative of Africa through the culture and many other topics through her blog, online magazine called Pays du Baobab. We will talk a little bit more about it. So, Meryem, tell us what inspired you to start your online magazine.
Well, first, thank you, Rogerio, for hosting me. It's a real pleasure to be here with you. We shared many experiences around the African youth, especially in African Union, for instance. So I'm very pleased to follow what we started some months ago.
Yeah.
So to go back to the topic, so I've started a blog that I like to call an online magazine called Pays du Baobab. It's in French. As you said, I'm a Moroccan, I'm based in France, but I'm also from Mali. So there is a link between all these cultures, French. So I started this is why I chose the French name. And Pays du Baobab, it means to the country of the Baobab. Baobab is the sacred tree in Africa that we can find in Western Africa, in Madagascar. So it's a very important tree in Africa, and it's a tree that is living for a long decades and centuries. So this is why I chose this name. In this magazine, what I wanted to do is to learn African history through African authors. So why this angle? Because, as African youth, we like to say that we're African, proud of our roots, our history, but sometimes we don't have the overview and all the knowledge about this history. And sometimes it's shared only through one certain angle. So what I wanted to do is to learn it through our authors, people who really share the knowledge they have, the feelings they have through a certain time in history, and being able to know it better from an internal angle. So this is why I chose it to share what I am currently learning, what I'm reading through this online magazine.
Yeah, that's very good. So do you think that this job is contributing somehow to the reshaping of narratives between Africa and the West and other countries worldwide? And other continents?
Sure, because we have a very nice culture. We like to show it through music. So there is a global knowledge, let's say, or at least sensitivity about African music, African art, etc. And sometimes we forget about literature. We forget about, the intellectuals that work, the historian that work on our history. There are a lot of specialists about African culture and history in the Western world, etc. So I think it's important to have it from the inside, from the authors that write about it, from the historian that writes about it, and to show and highlight all this work that sometimes is put aside. So that's what I wanted to do first. So learning about our history, and two, showing who these people are, what they wanted to work on, what are their work, and show it to people that have this sensitivity somehow.
Okay, so based that this is an online magazine, how do you measure the impact of your work? How do you measure it?
How I measure it first, yeah. I've started to spread what I talking about through social media. So I have, for example, an Instagram page that is somehow active, and I feel that people want to learn and like how I do it, and there is a pity. They're saying it's a pity we didn't know about it, or we didn't learn about it. So there is really this issue about learning how to learn African history, because we know it, but not in the right way, or there are really important things that are missing. As you're saying here in your show, what you're doing is showing inspiration, and through inspiration, there are role models, there is history, etc. And we're lacking of role models in our history. We're lacking of people showing that our culture and who we are powerful people that are working and fighting to create a very nice society.
That's right. So, Miriam, what other work or activity do you do for living instead of Pays du Baobab online magazine?
I do kind of a lot of things because I'm a very curious a person, and I like to do a lot. So um, my daily work, as I used to talk about it, I'm working in purchasing. So mainly is negotiation in the private sector. So I'm negotiating prices, contracts. I'm kind of a negotiator, but for the private
Okay.
sector.
Okay.
And when I have time, so I'm really involved in my online magazine. I
Okay.
also work a lot on how we used to call it here uh, is in French we call it diplomatie participative, means
Participative
like,
diplomacy. I don't know. Yeah.
meaning
Yeah.
like I started very young to get involved in youth movements in diplomacy, especially in an institute which is called Open Diplomacy. Open, so it means that the idea was to make easier the access to the understanding of international relationship, to geopolitics, but also being able to exercise diplomacy to real diplomatic events through the youth angle. For example, in 2019, I was the co-president of the U7, so it's a G7 official movement, and the G7, is the seven. It's a group of 7 countries. We used to call them the 7 most industrial countries. Another way to say powerful, let's say, even though I don't like it, but we define it as industrial countries. And to prepare the summit, the G7 works with official group representing the civil society. For example, you will have the companies, you will have the lawyers, and you will have as well the youth, you will have the women as well. So I was at the co-chairing the youth 7, and the idea was to make the same simulation than the G7, but with the youth perspective. So we worked on a full week of negotiation and work, very hard work with youth coming from all the G7 countries, but also from some African countries, because, well, it was important to show that you cannot just work from a G7 perspective. And it's the exercise that the G7 did as well, to invite countries from the African continent. So it was a very nice exercise, and we worked on 116 recommendations that we shared with the Sherpa. Sherpa is the diplomatic representative of a country. And we also reached a lot of ministers, and even Emmanuel Macron, which we gave him directly this booklet
Wow.
of recommendations. So I like to, as I started, we started this interview. To me, to be a good citizen, to be very active in the society, it's duty. It's not even a choice, it's duty. And there are many ways to do it, and I'm very involved because I think it's a way to pretend that we won't change, is to participate to the change.
Yeah. Well, that's a very busy schedule for you, huh? And I can
And
imagine,
I have a dog as
you
well.
know, I
So
can, yeah, I can just imagine your daily routine is it's quite hard and very hard for you. So how do you manage to have all these things done? What's your secret?
well, I think it's a secret that is not a secret anymore. It's hard work.
All right.
Hard work, but also doing some things that we truly like. When you do something you like, you need to find it. And how to find it is to allow yourself to practice different things, to be curious and to say, I don't know, I like to do gardening. Try to do gardening and see if you like it. If you don't, stop it, do something else. So it doesn't mean to be all serious topics and stuff, but just do something you like. And how do you find things you like is by practicing, trying, being curious. And when you find it, you will find time to do things you like. And the secret is hard work. You know, you wake up early, you read a book, you take some notes, you go to work, you come back, you do your meetings, you do your webinars. But at the end, when you want to do something, you find time to do it. Just find the thing you like to do, and it will be fine.
Do you think that your work and everything you do, especially when you look at African continent as a whole continent, your work helped you to challenge somehow your assumption, your first assumptions of Africa?
Sure, because as I told you, we have very biased knowledge of our history. And what I do in Pays du Baobab, I don't like to start, because, you know, I have, for each African country, this is my goal, each African country speak about the history since you know, ages, like from Middle Ages or something like that. I don't want to start with colonization. I don't want to start with this idea that Africa was born when people discovered it. This is totally wrong. And it's a lot of time. It's very time consuming, because I need to find the right book. You know, I'm very sensitive to the source, who writes it, why they write it. And I need, you know, I write it by myself, so it's not copy paste or something. It's very time consuming. So I want to have this knowledge from you know, Middle Ages until today, to understand why we're in this situation. And I know it's linked to history. And after, you know, what I've learned, we have, you know, sometimes I have learned that colonization is not as simple, but there is one way, let's say, to colonize countries, and it's the same thing that we found again. And I found that in a lot of countries we have coup d'etat, you know, like just after, imagine you're just learning your independence, and the first thing you want to do is to take back the power with guns, with weapons. And after you understand that it's not that simple, it's geopolitics, because you have other forces, other countries that are involved in this topic, and it's because of resources. It's not only just for independence and human rights. No, it's much more tricky than we think, and that's what we were telling to us. When there is a war somewhere, it's not just to get back dignity, to fight for human rights. No, it's to have resources. It's to have, you know, it's much more complex than this. And I'm learning all this with history, with authors that are speaking about this, in sometimes in a very nice novel or in a geopolitical book. So I'm learning much that history is much more complex than what we are trying to show us. And this is very interesting.
Yeah, sure. You know, the life is not always a success. The life is not always happiness. I know that maybe you faced it in your past somehow difficult when it comes to manage your online magazine or something like that. I want to ask you, how do you keep a sense of perspective when lives get difficult for you?
Well, first, I thank God for being alive, because even this is something very special. You know, we're living in a very complicated world, complex, that unfortunately life can start from a day to another. I think about what I have, and I'm grateful for it. It can be having food, it can be having family, and, you know, just taking time and being grateful for what you have. And I'm always think that when sometimes it's hard, it means that the result will be very amazing. So I try to, you know, to step back and to say, to reach a good result, maybe the way will be tough, but at the end you will be proud of what you do. So yes, sometimes I have downs, and I'm tired. I say, so what do you do this? You know, I'm thinking like everyone about, yes, you're studying this, but are you sure it will be a success, and so that. And sometimes just step back and say, okay, I'm grateful for what I have. Maybe it's not easy, but maybe at the end the result will be nice. And sometimes I say, even if you don't reach it, it's an experience of life. Any experience, you have good points and bad points, but you need to, that can be, euphoric all year and all day, but and sometimes my sister told me this when I was very, very, very sad, and she told me something that I didn't understand. And she told me, "But now that you're sad, means that you know that you're alive." So, and I didn't understand at the time why she told me that. But yes, if you still feel emotions and you still be sad about something, means you can be happy about something, and means that you're alive and you can feel things. And this is a gift from God, and we should take it into consideration. And
so three great lessons of life you have learned in the process. I know you're very young and you have still much more to give us, but of course you have learned a lot of lessons in this process. I want you to give us, as a young people, three great lessons, special to succeed as a young African leader.
well, first I would say know yourself, know your abilities in terms as a person, know yourself, what you want, where you want to go, why you want to do something. Don't do like the others. Don't do this because we've told you that it's a good thing. Do it because you want to do it, and if you do it, it's because you know yourself. And how do you know yourself? By trying to do things, be curious, read things, experience. And this is how you know yourself to better reach your goals, the goals that you will fix by yourself to yourself. And two, you're pointing to African youth. Now, African youth need to, as well, to know what Africa is, what's the history, why the situation is like this, why we are now, and why we want to change. So we need to know more the complexity of African environment. And this is very important to succeed. Know yourself, know your environment. And three, something that I really want us to do as young Africans, and not to forget what our elders did. In our society, in our mentality, elders are very important. It's important to keep this value. Many people started very interesting words. And I was, for example, doing a study about African editions. Many of them bring a lot to African education. And now these editions are over, they don't exist anymore. And it's a pity, because I learned some, I read some of them books, and they were very good, and we don't find them today in the market. So finish, it's a long process. So let's continue what our elders did and make it stronger. So not to forget this link between elders and our young generation. So these are the 3 points I would say for as African youth to succeed and to make each of our country succeed.
Thank you, Meryem Kokaina, for inspiring us today in our space of inspiration of a youth reference initiative. We are very happy to have you here today. And I hope you guys, you got the lessons of Meryem's life, and also you put in practice, okay? You have to put it in practice. You have to test it. Nothing is easy in life. Everything is difficult. You have to work hard. I think this is the some takeaway that I will take from this conversation today. Work hard. Don't use excuses. Okay?
No excuses.
Yeah, no excuses. Okay? Yeah, thank you guys. Stay safe from COVID-19. We will come back next opportunity with one more young African with more inspiring stories. Bye-bye.